I think the biggest mistake is that they think they are exercising too hard. They might be pushing the envelope a little bit. Sometimes when I'm talking with clients going into zone-based training, we either want to be gradual with it and be steady, or we want to do and push intense. But a lot of times as a guy, especially I feel as we get older, we want to push hard and we want to train hard, but we end up pushing too hard. And so sometimes we cause more damage than good. We end up hurting our joints, our muscles ache, we're not recovering properly, and I think we're just training too intensely and we're not paying attention to some rehabilitative techniques that can help us recover more.
Welcome back to Unstoppable After 50, the podcast for men who refuse to slow down in the second half of life. Today, I'm having a conversation with fitness expert Frank Wall. I met Frank after watching his YouTube channel. He does a bunch of videos about air bikes, assault bikes, and that's something that interested me. And I reached out to him and wanted to have him on today to discuss the importance of exercise intensity and using an air bike to achieve those intensity minutes. So stay tuned for an interesting conversation with Frank Wall. Hey, Frank, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm pumped to be here.
Yeah, listen, I was looking forward to this. So just a quick little backstory. I have been watching your YouTube channel, and as I've been doing some certain training about the air bike, which we're going to talk about, and I thought your videos were so good, Frank. I reached out to you and you were kind enough to come on to the podcast and talk today about exercise intensity for guys over 50, tips and tricks and some things we should know about. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the air bike, which is my new favorite exercise machine. So thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to be here and I can't wait to get going with everything.
So, Frank, as I mentioned to you in our previous conversation, I have been, I'm going to be 60 this month. So I've been pushing pretty hard for the last couple of years and really trying to get fit. I've been walking 10,000 plus steps a day, more like 13,000 on average for a number of years, missing 1 or 2 days a year due to whatever illness. And I really thought I was dialed in. Like I thought, this is it. I weight train, I walk. And I've come to learn that I've been missing probably a pretty important piece of the puzzle, which is intense exercise, vigorous intensity, which I'm not getting with, walking, if you will, the way I walk. So I wanted to bring you on today and talk about this. So at a very high level, why is exercise intensity such an important variable when it comes to health, longevity, etc. for guys?
Exercise intensity is super important because we actually do need to push ourselves. We need to challenge ourselves. It's very easy to get stuck in a comfort zone where you're doing the same old thing. And honestly, you can actually get by for the rest of your life and be healthy. For example, if we just hopped off the call today and you just continue to walk and do the same old thing, you're going to be better than 99% of a lot of people. Yes, sometimes people, they either push it too hard or they don't push it hard enough. And I think sometimes there's a little bit of a gray area because whenever we get started, some guys over 50 were like, oh, I need to start pushing it really hard. And then they're training a little bit too hard on the cardio, like I can't breathe, and they're sugar burning a lot. Whereas maybe they need to do a little bit of zone 2 based training where they're sticking in a little bit of a fat burning mode and taking it easy. And then sometimes they just get stuck in their routine too often and they don't want to push themselves hard. But we need to challenge ourselves because of the fact, if we're doing some steady state stuff in our normal exercise, that's our house, right? And we want to have a strong foundation. I always tell my clients we want to build our base a mile wide before we climb a mile high. But sometimes there's some of us and guys over 50 that we just want to go really intense and too hard, too fast, and then it's overwhelming. We get discouraged, we get lightheaded or nauseous, and then we stop our program. But it's important that we can do this in stages and we can push ourselves because as we push ourselves into zone 4 and zone 5, and when I talk about that higher thresholds, some high intensity training, it creates a metabolic stressor on the body. You'll burn calories for another 24, 48 hours sometimes. Your metabolism increases and you start creating physiological changes within the body. You are you're doing this high intensity interval training and you're sprinting and you're pushing yourselves really hard, and that can create a whole new person, but also it's your security system for the body, right? If you get too in tune with your low intensity exercise, you're not really going anywhere. You'll be fine, you'll be doing better, but for example, maybe you have to run and you have to get something, or heaven forbid, something's happening and you have to, do in a very alert, quick situation, or there's a blip in your heart rate and it spikes, that can create a heart attack, especially in guys over 50 if we're out of shape or deconditioned. And so if we never train our heart to push really hard and get to those high levels, if some sort of catastrophic event or some sort of emergency or something that blips your heart rate up, it could potentially cause a heart attack. So that's your security system. You need to be ready. And you can have a good base level of fitness, but if you don't push yourself intensely enough, there may be a circumstance where you could get lightheaded or nauseous or pass out or have to be rushed to the ER because your heart is just not ready and it's not prepared for that event.
Yeah. It's funny. I never thought of it that way, but yeah, that's yet another thing to worry about as you get older. I never thought about that, but you're probably right. That is a practical reality of being able to, have a really strong heart, very strong cardiovascular system. So Frank, I've read, this whole idea of, it's important for people to get 150 minutes of exercise every week or 75 minutes of vigorous exercise. And I'm always, it never really registered to me what that really meant. I always just shot for 150 minutes of walking, et cetera. But there's a difference, right? There's a difference between vigorous exercise and moderate exercise. Can you explain at a high level what that difference is?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not sure, maybe you might be talking about, there's a recommendation for getting a certain amount of cardio where you're doing your zone 2, which can be 150 minutes to 200 minutes a week of your, say it's like an incline walk or walking outside, just having a nice base. But also they've said, as far as the guidelines for having exercise, that you should exercise 30 minutes every day, but we've bumped it up. You should be exercising for at least 60 minutes a day. Now, sometimes it may not be intense exercise, right? It could just be going for a walk, because a lot of us are super sedentary and we do absolutely nothing. And so it's important that as far as cardiovascularly, that we are doing something for 150 minutes to 200 minutes of some zone 2 based cardio, which could be going for a walk with a weighted vest. Or if you're just brand new and starting off, I would recommend that you're having that, say, 150 minutes a week. Maybe you're doing 45 minutes, 3 days a week, and then you're just going for a walk. If you're doing nothing, even the littlest bit can matter, and it varies for every person, because sometimes I have someone that's over 400 pounds, which I do right now, and we were just doing the babyest steps. I had one guy, Paul, one of my clients, who lost over 100 pounds, and he started off doing a mailbox, and he walked to a mailbox and back, and that was it for today. It's not even 150 minutes a week. And then the next day he walked to a second mailbox and then on. So I think we start small, we can go gradual, but it's very important that we get that cardio in, because that's our base for our heart. And then as far as exercise and working out, I always recommend that you should at least be working out with weights a minimum of twice a week to at least 3 days a week, whether if it's for 20 to 30 minutes or 30 to 45 minutes. Now, when you're asking about the high intensity exercise, I'll be honest with you, Mike, that some of my clients, I do not even do any intense or vigorous training or cardio too much early on until we set a base. Because I've had clients, and if you use the assault bike, you know what I'm talking about, try to do 10 calories as fast as you can. Maybe it takes you 50 seconds, maybe you're a superhero and you do it under 20, and you're lightheaded and nauseous. And I'll be honest, accidentally early in my career, I've overdone it with some people. We're like, hey, just try 10 calories in an assault bike. And we're 37 minutes into the 90-minute session or so, and they're just like, they're out of it, and we have to start stretching. So to answer your question, we need both, but if you're just brand new, you're a guy over 50, I would probably postpone that intense exercise a little bit and be stable, have a good consistent routine, do a little bit every day, try and go walk, maybe hit that 150 to 200 minutes of a baseline of cardio to get your heart rate pumping, and then started adding in some resistance training or some weight training at least 2 or 3 days a week for 20 to 30 minutes, even if you're just getting started. Even 10 would be a huge jump from where you're at.
Yeah, I mean, as far as starting out, definitely, I mean, yeah, for sure. And especially as you get older, it's that much more, recovery is slower. So yeah, you definitely, want to take it easy. But as you start building, and I'm a great example of this, as I've been doing this over the years, I'm ready for more intense exercise. And you've been throwing around, you said zone 2, zone 1. Frank, can you just give a quick description for someone who might not understand what these different zones are?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the world of like a metabolic assessment, you have your 5 zones. You have zones 1 and 2, and going up to 3, 4, and 5, they get a little bit more intense. But your first 2 zones are primarily fat burning, right? Where oxygen, where your body is utilizing oxygen to burn fat. Now, as we top into zones 3, 4, and 5, we're still burning fat, but we're more sugar burning. Our body is utilizing carbohydrates as an energy source to help us, get through the movement and burn calories. So I always say one of the best ways if you're brand new and you get started and you don't have access to, for example, an assault bike, is that you start off and go and walk outside. Walking is one of the best ways to burn fat because you don't need any exercise equipment to do it, and so I can recommend it to the general population. Now, if you've been walking for a little while, you're probably not getting out of breath. Now, unless maybe you're very overweight or you have a different level of cardiovascular fitness, even going for a walk can be very challenging. But if you've been working out for quite some time now and walking is not so bad, that's probably going to be a zone 1 for you. And when I say zone 1, it's your heart rate is very low, and it can kind of vary from person to person, but maybe if you're going for a brisk walk, say your heart rate's like around 100 or 110 beats per minute, and then maybe you throw on a weighted vest and you get it to 120 or so, and that would be zone 2. And then there's a certain point where you reach your anaerobic threshold, which is that point which your body loses the ability to process oxygen and burn fat, in which now you're sugar burning, you're utilizing carbohydrates, you're huffing and puffing, maybe you're going for a jog, or when you start sprinting, or you're on the fan bike or assault bike and you're going all out. Now you're going into those higher zones, which is basically just a level of heart rate. And so, not to get too far off into a tangent, but I recommend everybody watching this video that get a metabolic assessment done. You can just type in metabolic assessment on Google. I like Lifetime Fitness, it's where I've done mine, but they can do them at different centers, and they're gonna give you your zones of training, so then you can actually specifically attack cardio in the right way based on your heart rate. Because everybody at different ages and different points in their life, maybe different metabolic conditions, if they've had surgery or operations or certain diseases or illnesses or just different levels of ability, they can all have different heart rates. And I think it's important to know that so you're not pushing too hard or taking it too easy on yourself.
First of all, I find that interesting because that's something new I had not heard of. So there's like 3 or 4 different equations out there to determine your max heart rate and therefore determining your zones. Because the max heart rate is the number you use, and then you do percentages of it to calculate zones 1 through 5, right? But what you're saying is rather than using some generic formula, you can go get this tested and know your exact.
Yeah, you can get it tested, and that's something I did when I was very early in my career. I worked corporate at Lifetime Fitness, and it was such a great gym, and they really stressed metabolic testing and metabolic assessments. Now, not to get too far off on another tangent, but when I was briefly doing some competitive Spartan races, I wanted to make sure that I knew where my heart rate zones were so I wasn't overdoing it. Because whenever you're doing a Spartan race or an event, especially if you're getting more competitive, you don't want a red line. And I'm not the biggest person who's in the world of endurance training and things like that. I love weightlifting and looking good, and I push myself and I train hard, use the assault bike after having 2 knee surgeries and going through that. But I found it so important to know where my zones were, because I would look down at my watch and I'm like, oh man, my heart rate's 160. I need to cool it. I don't care if I want to become first place and win this race, but if my heart rate's above 165 for too long, I'm going to hit the wall. And you only do that so many times, and then you're like dying. And sometimes we're, as guys over 50, we might be pushing the envelope too hard. We redline too much, and then we're taking the extra potential out of our workout. So if you get this test done and you know your zones, and especially if you're doing an endurance race or you're going for a long run, it gets, when I was an overweight fat kid growing up, I was redlining the whole time and dying on a treadmill thinking I was gonna try and lose weight. I was sugar burning and I stayed fat, And I was probably just burning sugars and carbs, and I was pushing myself too hard. Even as a young kid, before I got started training, I was already overdoing it, and then I hated running and my heart rate was going too high. But if you know these zones, it's a more strategic way to get in shape. And it's 2026 at the filming of this video. We should be utilizing science and technology to do things smarter instead of just working randomly and shooting from the hip. While you can still do it, but it's not 1980. We have technology, we should use it.
So just real quick on those tests, that metabolic test you're referring to, what is that, a treadmill test? Is that how they do it?
You can do it in different ways. So I used to do it on a treadmill, treadmill. I don't do much running these days because I've had 2 ACL surgeries, and it's been about a year and 3 months since my last one. So I have little to no cartilage left in my right knee. Left one's not too bad. It kind of clicks a little bit, but I can run around my studio, or if I need to grab something real fast, I push off the balls of my feet, but running is just not it for me anymore. And I'll be honest, I've always hated it, but I did it anyways because it was easy. I can get my butt out the door and go run. And so now I decided to use the assault bike, or it's just my favorite way of doing it. It's non-impact. I have my hands on the handles I can push, and it's just such a great way for me to get my cardio in. But if you're able to, you can do it in different ways. Usually sometimes they'll have people on a spin bike. The assault bike was a little bit harder, and I was kind of a guinea pig because the metabolic tech that did it with me, we had to start it over 3 times. And I'm not sure if you've ever done one before, you look forward to it, but you have to push your heart rate to that envelope where you're sugar burning, and it's very uncomfortable. So I had to start over a few times, but we were able to find my watts and where my heart rate was. But when you're doing it on a treadmill, for example, you're gonna be wearing like this oxygen mask, and they have it hooked up to a laptop and a computer, and you're gonna start off gradually, and they're gonna slowly ramp up your heart rate. And basically what they're looking for, Mike, is this anaerobic threshold, basically at which the point where your body is not burning, you're not utilizing oxygen for fat burning, and it starts sugar burning. And it could take some time. Sometimes, one time it took me like 13, 14 minutes, which I'll be honest, that was horrible. I was running at like 9 miles an hour. Now I'm capable. Now maybe for someone who's not as fit or not as conditioned, a 6 mile an hour baby jog could just spike their heart rate through the roof. So sometimes you can be a little bit more fortunate if exercise is kind of new to you, because I've seen people just go for an incline walk at level 10, their heart rate's through the roof. So, but what that metabolic test does is gonna push your heart right to that threshold and your breathing to when you're fat burning to more sugar burning.
Okay, very interesting. And this also, refers back to, and it's all over the internet, there's books, there's tons of podcasts talking about zone 2 training, right? And the importance of zone 2, which is the kind of, you mentioned it before, you could be walking, you can have a conversation. There's a slight elevation of your heart rate to the level where you can feel it, but we could do a podcast probably. And the importance of using zone 2 as a foundational part of your training. But what we're talking about, and what I'm talking about, and we're going to talk about the assault bike, air bike here a little bit more, are those times when you want to get into zone 3, zone 4. I don't think I've gotten into zone 5 yet, Frank, but I guess I'm not pushing myself enough. But that, I just wanted to refer back. That's what we're hearing online, everywhere, everyone talking about zone 2 training, right?
Yeah, and with the zone 2 training, I think that's a good base. I think, like I said earlier, we have to build our base a mile wide before we can climb a mile high. And it's so important that we have that zone 2 and we set our aerobic base. It's very easy sometimes to jump into a fitness program and want to go intense, and especially we see these Hollywood actors and superheroes and movie stars and are doing all this intense training, but a lot of this training sometimes can start from a year prior, even 6 months. You can accomplish a lot in 6 months, but before we jump the gun, we want to have a nice base. So before I even recommend anybody doing high intensity exercise, depending on the person, some people can be advancing a little bit quicker than others. I want to have a good zone 2 where we're pushing our heart rate up a little bit, where maybe we're huffing and puffing, we're breathing, but we can still have a conversation with someone, and we're elevating our heart rate enough that it stimulates more fat burning, and that's one of the best zones for fat burning. Now, zone 1 is a little bit earlier on. That's a little bit of a lighter heart rate, and while you can do it by just simply walking, it's just going to take you a little bit longer. Obviously, as the heart rate gets a little bit higher, you start to increase the caloric burn a little bit, especially when you're doing that high intensity, training. You might be utilizing a little bit more sugars and carbs, and it's harder to breathe. But as you're doing that high intensity training also, you're not burning as much fat in the process, but in the long term, your metabolism increases, the cells, the structure of the body starts changing. It's literally creating a chemical response in the body to get your cells and everything to change, and it's gonna help strengthen your heart. It's gonna make it stronger. But we do wanna have a good base. We wanna have a good zone 2 where maybe we're going for an incline walk on a treadmill. I tell people, maybe you start off easy, walk at 2 miles an hour, set that incline at level 5, and try walking for 30 minutes. But if you haven't done anything, go walk outside and build your base, because then if you have a nice aerobic base, your heart will actually be strong enough to handle the high intensity exercise. And guys over 50, sometimes we go gung-ho and we just want to push it really hard, And we do too much, too soon, get hurt, get injured, and in the worst case, we get sent to the hospital because our heart rate's beating so fast, and maybe we get lightheaded and pass out. And the ambulance has to come over, and that's a bad day.
Well, I mean, I'm sure there's people that go out and buy air bikes, assault bikes, as you call them, and figure, you know what, it's just a bike, right? And I can recall, Frank, that I kept watching videos. That's how I found you before I bought my air bike, thinking, how hard can this thing be? I never used one when I was going to the gym. I saw the old Schwinn Airdynes, and I'm like, it doesn't look like anything. Boy, was I mistaken. So I want to shift the conversation on a tool that's specific, the air bike, the assault bike, the fan bike, the wind bike. There's many different names, and it's probably the most deceptive torture device I've ever used. I did it this morning. I know you mentioned it earlier. You really like this. Why do you like the air bike so much?
It's a love-hate relationship, Mike. I love the way it makes me feel. I hate doing it. And then I'll be honest too, right next to my air bike, I have a Rogue Echo bike. I do have a Peloton in my garage. I have 2 assault bikes or Rogue Echo bikes in my studio here. I don't do too much of the spin bike, but I do like to have both. And sometimes when I'm feeling lazy, I hop on the spin bike, I put my tablet up. But whenever I'm ready to work, and especially as we're approaching till summer, I think we're about 98 days away here from summer, I do love the assault bike because it gets my whole body moving, especially after having 2 knee surgeries. Even like 13 days after surgery, I was on that bike. I had to put the seat all the way back. And if you've seen how many calories you can burn, it can add up quick. But out of surgery, I think I was on there 10 minutes and barely even got 5 calories, where my best is I can get 13 calories in less than or I can get 10 calories in about 13 seconds or so, which is moving the needle pretty quick. But the best thing about it is that it's a total body effort. So what I love is when I'm short on time, I can hop on the bike in the morning, get right on there and get to it. I don't have to worry about doing this big dynamic warm-up, which I still do if I'm lifting weights, and I have various different exercises I do. But the assault bike or the air bike, echo bike, whatever you want to call it, the whole being on the bike is a warm-up in itself. And then the harder you go, the harder it gets. And so you can increase the difficulty at any point in time you want just by pushing a little bit harder. And then that's the other thing too, is sometimes it is hard to push yourself like that, but I love it because if I'm short on time and I want to do some high intensity exercise and I'm ready for it, I can get a little warm up. And then once I'm warmed up and my joints are moving and flowing and everything's good, I can push the envelope. Let's just say I even do it 10 seconds. And if you or anybody else has done the assault bike or air bike before, you know that 10 seconds can go a long way, especially as you're pushing really hard on there. So it gives me the most bang for my buck when I'm short on time, but also it gives me that total body effect that now, since I'm not running or I don't do other forms of cardio, this is my go-to choice, and it gives me a whole total body burn.
Yeah, and there's no electricity. There's a battery for the little computer on it, but you're not hooked up to anything. You are the engine, and you can go from your resting heart rate to zone 3, zone 4 really quick. I mean, when I'm using it, Frank, I'm just warming up. I warm up for 5 minutes, just kind of going through nothing super intense, and I'm already in zone 3, which is crazy.
Yeah, that's easy to do.
Oh yeah, I'm always amazed. I'm looking at my watch going, what the heck? But I'm glad because I'm getting minutes. But so far, all I've used it for, Frank, is really just adding more intense minutes to my weekly routine. Now, I know you do shorter workouts, you do longer workouts on the bike. I've been doing like a Tabata. I've really just stuck with the 10-20, right? 10 seconds on, pushing hard.
If you're doing 10-20s, that's the hardest one. I have
really?
A 4-minute workout. I don't know if you saw it. I hated it. I haven't done it since that video. It's been like 3 or 4 years, I'll be honest.
I did see that video, yeah. Okay, so someone's listening to this or watching this and they're going, wait, 10 seconds of exercise and it's hard, and then 20 seconds, like double the amount of, why is that so damn hard?
Because of the fact you are pushing yourself. So when you're going all out, even if you're new, your all out may not be as hard as someone else who's more fit, but you go all out for 10 seconds, it's literally like you're doing a sprint. Now, not everybody is able to sprint that fast, but what I love is because I've had people of all shapes and sizes. I've had clients that were in their 80s, 70s, 20s, anybody can hop on and do it. Now, not everybody can do an Olympic level sprint or some of the other sled pushes and things like that, but on a bike, it's very fluid. And the thing is, it's so friendly on the joints, and it is deceiving because you're just moving those pedals and you're moving your arms and your legs, but it wipes out the entire body. So now I've used the spin bike back in the day before I was introduced to the assault bike and the air bike. And while you're just using your legs, I'm not saying that's not, hard either, but your arms are getting a break. But this one, your brain is trying to figure out how much oxygen your lungs, your legs, your arms, and everything needs. So it's a very fast way to get you out of breath very quick. And the 10-20 is intense because now if you're putzing around for 10 seconds and you're taking it easy for 20, again, it's different for everybody. Maybe you're like, oh, the Tabata wasn't hard. But if you go all out, you will struggle. You will find yourself dying in a minute and a half, and it feels like you're 30 minutes in, So it can be very, very tough. The harder you push, the harder it gets. And 10-20, while it's great, that would be a good 4 minutes. You warm up and then do that 4-minute workout. You're done with that for now. And then maybe you start your workout or that's it for the day.
I do it after a weight training session just because the bike is right there. I'm not sure if that's the smartest thing, but it's just I do 5-minute warm up. It's a 4-minute. You're right. It's 4 minutes and then another 5-minute cool down. And I do it downstairs in the basement, and my wife will be upstairs. We have a separate building, and this is where we work out, and she'll be upstairs doing something, and she thinks I'm dying because I've never cursed more than I've ever cursed on a fan bike, on an air bike. I mean, I don't curse a lot. I curse a lot on that damn air bike because it's until you try it. But it's a love-hate because it's so damn efficient. So let's get specific, Frank, with it. If someone's either has one or might want to get one, what would be, because you've done shorter, more intense ones. I mean, can you do a longer, I have not done a longer workout on it, but can you do it, or do you recommend just these short?
No, absolutely. And that's something I've started to integrate more now. And that's why I mentioned that metabolic test, because I was kind of like you. When I first got introduced to this bike, Mike, I did not want any part of a long workout. That did not exist in my vocabulary. I've been working out for over 25 years and training clients for over 20 years, and doing like a 50-minute workout on the assault bike just seemed like insane, which I actually have one online, and it's a ladder workout, and it kicked my butt. And if you happen to do it, you'll see me dying doing the workout. But when I did my metabolic test in 2023, I knew I was going to get surgery next year. I wanted to start gravitating towards this because I didn't know how it was going to be. I thought I was getting one ACL surgery. This is for another conversation, but I ended up getting two, and I tore my other one during the process of rehabbing the first one because I entered a competition too soon. Anyways, not smart. But I wanted to test my metabolic efficiency, and so I've never been a big endurance guy. I don't do long distance runs. It's not my thing. I don't swim I swim, but I've always, ever since I started training, I was like, wow, the Olympic sprinters, I want to look like them. They're running quick, short distances. And then I looked at, and nothing against people who do long distance or marathon runners. I was like, well, I don't really want to look like that. I've wanted to look better. I was an overweight fat kid. I wanted to look better. I wanted to have abs. And so I wanted to find out what was the best way. So I have always gravitated towards that high intensity training, doing something really hard and taking a break. So when I was first using the bike, I've tried the 10-20, it's evil. I was doing these very, harder workouts, sometimes 10 or 20 seconds all out and a 40-second rest. Like I have one online, it's a 10-minute workout where it's just 20 seconds all out, 40 seconds you kind of cruise and you do that. Very intense. But when I met up with the metabolic tech, she was a triathlete. She did everything from running and swimming and, biking. And she was telling me that if I want to increase some of my power output, I need to build my base. And I didn't get that until just, only 3 years ago. And so it was something new. Like even as a trainer where I coach people and I educate people to get in the best shape of your life, I claim that I don't know everything and I'm always a student. So I'm trying to learn. So that's when I started shifting gears and I was like, oh, wow. Now I haven't been super consistent, and I won't say I'm on the assault bike 4 days a week, 45 minutes, and I'm married to it. But that's something I'm really trying to work up and do this year. So when we talked about that zone 2, doing that 150 minutes to 200 minutes of zone 2, that's something I, even having this conversation with you, that I want to get to this year and try it and be more consistent with that. So doing the zone 2 on the assault bike, you can go 45 minutes. I think my record's like an hour and 15, and then that was it. But again, I'm listening to podcasts and things like that, and you really gotta be right in your mind to do that. But, like when I had only pushed 30, one time I was like, can I do 45? And when I had pushed 50, I was like, can I go 60? Now, I don't recommend doing that for a long, long time, but you can do it a little bit longer than you think, but you just can't go as intense. So you got to keep your heart rate a little bit lower, but you can go 30, 45, 50 minutes. And that would be a great way to, help improve your zone 2. But you're going to keep those watts and you're going to keep your heart rate a little bit lower than you would when you're pushing all out.
So when you're doing the intense higher zone training on an air bike, I mean, you kind of, if anyone's watching you, it's kind of scary, right? Because you're again, go watch Frank's videos online. You're gonna have to share your YouTube channel here in a second, but you're like, it's almost like you're convulsing. I mean, you're really pushing and you're really grinding on that. The difference, what you're suggesting on a lower intensity routine on an air bike, if you're keeping it zone 2, I mean, it's still a challenge. I mean, you're feeling it in your muscles, but you're saying keep it around zone 2 for 20, 30 minutes is very doable.
No, it's very doable. And even if you're brand new starting off to it, I mean, it might be very easy for you to get to zone 2, but I always feel like when it comes to exercise, I'll tell people, like, if they're having a hard time getting started, just try 10 minutes. Because maybe you'll start doing a little bit more. But even if it's 10 minutes all you do, you'll be able to start slowly stacking up. Maybe you do 10 minutes for the first week, and then you add a minute every week. And then that's how you progress, and you slowly can get to 20 minutes. Because everybody's routine can be different, and it's always evolving and ever going. And heck, maybe you're very deconditioned and out of shape, and you're watching this for the first time, and it takes you a whole year to do a 45-minute workout. And so when I talked with this, triathlete, she was recommending that if I want to improve my power and get my max output, because I'll be honest, even when I go intense, yeah, I'm pretty fit and I've worked out for a long time, but I will plateau on those 20-second spurts. And then as you get more advanced, I'm trying to go out for 20 seconds, but I'll be honest, sometimes as early as 7, 10, 13 seconds, you start petering down. So you're trying to go all out for that 20, but you're losing that intensity a little bit. So, and it's good if you get that metabolic test, it'll show you exactly where your zone is, because you think you're in zone 2 and you're doing something moderate, but I know my zones and I look at my heart rate, I'm like, oh my God, I'm not even in zone 1. Like, I got to get going a little bit more. And I'll be honest, there are some days, Mike, that like my zone 2, it's like, it might take me 10 minutes to finally like get warmed up to actually be comfortable with it, because I'm human just like everybody else. There might be times during the winter where I'm not always consistent. And if there goes a month, and I'll be honest, there has been, where I don't hop on the bike, man, I feel it. Kind of like if I don't do yoga for a couple of months and I go back in, I'm a fit person, but I'm like, a little baby deer. I can't walk straight because I'm trying to balance. So it takes time to get used to it. And I feel if you put a little bit more energy to it and you're able to slowly just be as consistent as possible, it's going to help you out a lot. And that's a really great place to start. But if there's someone like you, or you think you've been able to push it a little bit harder, sure, you might accidentally, like I did. I just started off in doing some HIIT. But I think if you want to have some longevity in this, it's good to have that zone 2 and have a little bit more steady state cardio involved.
Do not underestimate the air bike. Again, I used to sprint. I don't sprint anymore. I've done kettle. I've done it all too for decades. And I think maybe the sled was something I've used in the past where I've really felt like cardiovascular, like this is really tough. But the air bike is, it's like I say, it's just a love-hate thing, and it's a torture device that you'll want to get on a couple times a week. Frank, before we wrap up here, is there any last thoughts about air bikes? I know my one recommendation for folks, if you're listening to this and you hadn't thought about it, go check Facebook Marketplace. Yes, you can buy them new.
100%.
But
I agree.
There are so many people that buy these things, put a couple hours on them, and then quickly. I can't believe how many I'm seeing now. I was just talking to my wife yesterday. I just bought one early in the year, a new one, and I thought I should wait because I know they're going to be coming on the market, and I didn't. I bought it new, and there's a ton of them out there now. So check Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist, whatever local place you have. Any other quick tips on air bikes and just recommendations?
Yeah, I think as far as with like air bikes, I generally would prefer probably a belt-driven one because I've put everybody through the abuse and gone through it, and it just doesn't, I haven't had to do any maintenance on it. I mean, occasionally I might look and see if something's shaking, maybe have to tighten something up, which honestly I don't think I really have, but I always will go through equipment in the studio and just make sure that everything's tip-top shape. Now, again, I haven't owned a belt-driven one, or not a belt-driven one, a chain-driven one, but I have heard from going on online and in the internet that sometimes they will take a little bit more maintenance. Maybe you have to adjust the chain or lube it. Sometimes they can be a little bit cheaper. And I know in the marketplace of assault bikes, they have gotten a little bit more expensive. But like you said, if you go on Facebook Marketplace, generally someone has been treating that like a storage rack, putting their clothes on there and just hanging up things, and they've maybe used it for a few times. My very first one, kind of like you, I bought it brand new, got it off of Rogue Fitness. I think since then it's gone up a couple $100 in tax and shipping. It's, you know, it's almost like at least 30% more expensive. But always check Facebook Marketplace, find one used. A lot of times someone has barely used it because, like you said, this thing is like, it's a love-hate relationship and it's death. And once people understand exactly how hard it is, not everybody wants to work that hard, Mike. And especially I think as we get over 50, things can be a little bit more challenging. And we go in here with high intentions and we want to push the envelope. We realize it's too hard and we're like, nah, I'm not going to do that. So you'll be able to get a deal if you look online, and just be patient. You can find one, but if you're really gung-ho and you want to get one, yeah, you can get one brand new too.
Yeah, and you're right. The belt-driven is the way to go. All the research I did too. And again, I think for guys, you know, joining us right now, it's a great tool to add. You know, if you're really trying to get to that next level and truly be unstoppable. I'm just astounded by it. So Frank, before we wrap up here, I'd like you to share how my audience can get to your YouTube channel, any online presence you want to share.
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to go on YouTube or Instagram. I'm on TikTok too. Those are my biggest areas of social media. Frank Wall Fitness, you'll find me on there. If you want to learn any more information about how I approach nutrition or some of my other links, you can go on Instagram, click the link in my bio, you'll see that there. I think one big takeaway, if you want to understand a little bit more and learn a little bit more about me and my approach to diet and nutrition, you can go to frankwallfitness.com/nutrition-masterclass. And then I have a whole 26, 27-minute video sitting there. Get your popcorn ready. It's a little bit long, but you'll get to learn a little bit more about me and how I approach diet and nutrition. I have my top 10 diet and nutrition tips, because everything we've talked about today is great, and I think it's very important to help strengthen our heart, strengthen our body, get in better shape, but nutrition is what's going to show off all those results. So if you focus on your nutrition and focus on being strong and strengthen your heart through cardiovascular exercise, you're going to make a little bit more progress. And that'll be a really great way to, you know, connect with me a little bit more and find out about who I am and what I'm about.
And you mentioned we work with clients. Are you working with clients just locally? Do you work with clients virtually?
Yeah, I work with clients locally and virtually and online. So I have people that come into my Swanee studio here based in Georgia, about 30 minutes from Atlanta. Sometimes people come in, I have some clients that, you know, stop by a few times a year that are in New York and they used to live here, or they travel, and whenever they're in town, they'll come in and see me. But also I do online coaching, and I have done virtual workouts, especially, you know, during that time a little while ago in 2020, I was doing a lot more virtual workouts, and I still do that with people if they request it. So I can help them set up a program. We can either do something virtually like we're doing here, or they can do an online program of mine and work with me and have, you know, dedicated times to speak on the phone and go over any kind of their goals and frustrations and limitations. And I can help them design a plan and close with videos, nutrition, and all the information they need to help take them to the next level.
Awesome. All right. Well, listen, folks, go check out definitely the YouTube channel. You got some great videos there, the masterclass. I appreciate all that, Frank. And before we wrap up, I have my Unstoppable After 50 trifecta. It's 3 quick questions, 3 quick answers. Now, I know you haven't hit 50 yet, so I'm going to ask you to think about a guy that's
41.
What's that?
I said I'm 41.
Yeah,
yep,
yeah,
I'm
You're
working up there.
pretty much a kid. Frank, what is one habit or action that you think every guy over 50 should really implement in his life to make a big difference?
I think one of the best things that I could think of is actually drinking water right when you wake up. So many times we get into our day, we might start off, we have a pot of coffee, it's noon or 1, and then maybe we're tired or sleepy, lightheaded or dizzy, but we can get dehydrated. And heaven forbid, if you're dehydrated and you hop on that assault bike, your body's gonna be a complete mess. You need water, and if you have that, you can do it first thing in the morning, right when you wake up. It's gonna help jumpstart your day.
Okay, Frank, what's one book every guy over 50 should read?
I'm so glad you asked. Intelligent Fitness, Simon Watterson. I recently revisited this, and it's the guy who's behind James Bond. Actually, Pierce Brosnan for a couple of movies, and Daniel Craig for the last 5. Plenty of other Hollywood actors, Chris Evans, Captain America. But I highly recommend this book because of the fact it's gonna help you get some exercises under your belt immediately. You're gonna have some demonstrations of exactly how to work out, and kind of like what we talked about today, some intelligent fitness, something smart that takes some actionable steps right now, help you get in better shape, and explain some of the philosophy of how you can exercise.
Awesome, I'll have to check that one out. And finally, Frank, what is your Unstoppable After 50 weekly challenge? What's something a guy can go do this week to move the needle?
My Unstoppable After 50 challenge is immediately right now spending 10 minutes a day doing active recovery, where some sort of stretching, foam rolling, nurturing your body. Because as I've gotten older, and I'm 41, but as I approach 50, I did not double down on this in my youth. I would just work out and train and then get hurt, and I kept getting hurt. So it's very important that if you want to have some longevity in the game and stay in here for a long time, pay attention to your recovery. Start foam rolling, start doing some sort of massage, deep tissue massage, some sort of dynamic stretching to loosen up the body, to keep it primed and ready, so that way you can keep exercising longer and not get hurt and stay injury free.
Awesome. Well, Frank, listen, I appreciate your time. It's nice to be able to get to know you. And again, I met you through your YouTube channel. You do a great job. Folks, go check out his YouTube channel and check out his masterclass. And again, thank you for your time today.
No, I appreciate you having me on. Thank you so much, Mike.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Frank. By all means, check out his YouTube channel, check out his masterclass, and hopefully we've intrigued you enough to, if you don't have an air bike, to maybe check out adding an air bike to your regimen. And if you like what I'm doing here with Unstoppable After 50, please make sure you like and subscribe to the show. Go check out the YouTube channel. Appreciate you subscribing there. And also make sure you check out unstoppableafter50.com and sign up for my weekly playbook. Every week I send a recap to my group of men who've asked for it, a PDF that's designed to be printed and saved, and it's a recap of that previous week's episode. So check out unstoppableafter50.com.